सिद्धिविनायकमूर्ति की जय। जानकीकान्तस्मरणं जय जय राम राम। गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्द गोविन्द। हर हर नमः पार्वतीपतये हर हर महादेव। श्री सद्गुरुस्वामिनः जय। आञ्जनेयस्वामिनः जय। सदा बालरूपापि विघ्नाद्रिहन्त्री महादन्तिवक्त्रापि पञ्चास्यमान्या विधीन्द्रादिमृग्या गणेशाभिधामे विधत्तां श्रियं कापि कल्याणमूर्तिः श्यामा काचन चन्द्रिका त्रिभुवने पुण्यात्मनामानने सीमा शून्यकवित्ववर्षजननी याः कापि कादम्बिनी महारारातिमनोविमोहनविधौ काचित्तमः कन्दली कामाक्ष्याः करुणाकटाक्षलहरी कामाय मे कल्पतां शारदा शारदाम्भोजवदना वदनाम्बुजे सर्वदा सर्वदास्माकं सन्निधिं सन्निधिं क्रियात्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। अपारकरुणासिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं प्रणमामि मुदान्वहं। यदीयाङ्घ्रिचिन्ता सुपूता च वाणी यदीयं स्वरूपं सदा ध्यानयोग्यं तमेवेन्दुचूडाख्यदिव्यावतारं मनोवाक्शरीरैः गुरुश्रेष्ठमीडे सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीं। दोर्भिर्युक्ता चतुर्भिः स्फटिकमणिमयीम् अक्षमालां दधाना हस्ते नैकेन पद्मं सितमपि च शुकं पुस्तकं चापरेण भासा कुन्देन्दुशङ्खस्फटिकमणिनिभा भासमाना असमाना सा मे वाग्देवतेयं निवसतु वदने सर्वदा सुप्रसन्ना। कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलं। वाल्मीकेः मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं को न याति परां गतिं। यः पिबन् सततं रामचरितामृतसागरम् अतृप्तः तं मुनिं वन्दे प्राहाचेतसमकल्मषम्। आञ्जनेयमतिपाटलाननं काञ्चनाद्रिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरुमूलवासिनं भावयामि पवमाननन्दनं। वैदेहीसहितं सुरद्रुमतले हैमे महामण्टपे मध्ये पुष्पकम् आसने मणिमये वीरासने सुस्थितम्। अग्रे वाचयति प्रभञ्जनसुते तत्त्वं मुनिभ्यः परं व्याख्यान्तं भरदादिभिः परिवृतं। रामं भजे श्यामलं नमोऽस्तु रामाय सलक्ष्मणाय देव्यै च तस्यै जनकात्मजायै। नमोऽस्तु रुद्रेन्द्रयमानिलेभ्यः नमोऽस्तु चन्द्रार्कमरुद्गणेभ्यः। पीताम्बरं करविराजितशङ्खचक्रकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायं அதிசுந்தரமந்தஹாசம் வாதாலயேஷமனிஷம் ஹிருதி பாவயாமி. யோஹந்தः பிரவிஷ்ய மம வாசமிமாம் பிரசுப்தாம் சஞ்சீவயதி அகிலசக்திதரஸ்வதாம்னா அன்யான்ஸ்ச ஹஸ்தசரணஸ்ரவணத்வகாதீன் பிராணான் நமோ பகவதே புருஷாய துப்யம். ஸ்ருதிஸ்மிருதிபுராணோக்ததர்மகோஷணநிஸ்துலம் பக்தவாத்சல்யஜலதிம் பூர்ணானுகிரககாரிணம் உபன்யாசமஹாரத்னம் அஜாதகடுபாஷணம் அனந்தராமயோகீந்திரம் மத்குரும் ஸ்ரேயசே பஜே. மூஹுகம் கரோதி வாசாலம் பங்கும் லங்கயதே கிரிம் யத்கிருபா தமஹம் வந்தே பரமானந்தமாதவம். பக்தவாத்சல்யஜலதேஹே பரமானந்தரூபிணः அஸ்மதாச்சார்யராஜஸ்ய பிரபன்னோஸ்மி பதாம்புஜம். த்ரயம்பகபுராதீஷம் கணாதிபசமன்விதம் கஜாரூಢமஹம் வந்தே சாஸ்தாரம் குலதெய்வதம் விராஜந்தம் திருநயனே வள்ளீசேனாபதிம் பிரபும் வாஞ்சிதார்த்தப்ரதம் வந்தே ஷண்முகம் குலதெய்வதம் புத்திர்பலம் யசோ தைரியம் நிர்பயத்வமரோகதா அஜாட்யம் வாக்பட்டுத்வஞ்ச ஹனுமத்ஸ்மரணாத் பவேத். அஞ்சிலே ஒன்று பெற்றான் அஞ்சிலே ஒன்றை தாவி அஞ்சிலே ஒன்றாராக ஆரியற்காக ஏகி அஞ்சிலே ஒன்று பெற்ற அணங்கை கண்டு அயலாரூரில் அஞ்சிலே ஒன்றை வைத்தான் அவன் நம்மை அழித்து காப்பான். ஊனிடைச்சுவர் வைத்து எண்பு தூண்ணாட்டி உரோமம் மேய்ந்து 9 வாசல் தானுடை குரம்பை பிரியும் போது உந்தம் சரணமே சரணம் என்றிருந்தேன். தேனுடை கமலத்திருவினுக்கரசே திரை குள்மா நெடுங்கடல் கிடந்தாய் நானுடை தவத்தால் திருவடி அடைந்தேன் நைமிஷாரண்யத்தொழிந்தாய். ஸ்ரீஹரயே நமः. சீதாலக்ஷ்மண பரதசத்ருக்ன ஹனுமத் சமேத ஸ்ரீராமச்சந்திராய பரபிரம்மணே நமः. குருபவனபுரேஷாய நமः. சத்குருச்சரணாரவிந்தாभ्यां நமः. வாக்தேவ்யை நமः. ஓம் ஹனுமதே நமः. ஸ்வஸ்தியஸ்து சமஸ்தசன்மங்களானி சந்து समस्तैश्वर्यप्राप्तिरस्तु. श्लोकैकदेशश्रवणपठनमात्रेण वक्तुश्च श्रोतॄणां धर्मादिनिखिलपुरुषार्थ सिद्धिप्रदे समस्तकलिकल्मषापनूतनपटुतले श्री रामगुणानुभवे अद्य वर्तमानकथाप्रसङ्गः. श्रीहरये नमः. श्रीपतिः परमात्मा सर्वेश्वरः अगणित अनंत कल्याण गुणगण विशिष्टः आवद्बान्धवः आर्तत्राणपरायणः इच्छा द्वेषरहितः ईप्सितार्थप्रदः उषत्कालस्मरणीयः ऊर्जितात्मवैभवः एतसा अस्पृष्टः येन सा स्पृष्टः ऐंकारादि महामंत्रस्वरूपः ओजस्तेजोद्युतिधरः औदार्यादि गुणालयः अप्रमेयः आश्रितवत्सलः दीनबन्धुः भक्तपक्षपाती सनकादिस्तुत्यः वेदान्तवेद्यः सर्वलोकशरण्यः सर्वेश्वरः लोकान् उद्दिदीर्षुः नानायुगेषु नाना रूपेण अवततार. तस्य भगवतः अवतारेषु रामावतारः गुणश्रैष्ट्यात् विशिष्यते. एतान् गुणान् तीव्र अनुष्ठानेन अभ्यासबलेन अनुवर्तमानः साधकः ईश्वरत्वम् आप्नोति इति दर्शितवान् भगवान्। तस्य रामचन्द्रमूर्तेः प्राणप्रतिष्ठामहोत्सवः आगामी सोमवारे अयोध्यायां प्रचलिष्यति। अस्मत्सनातनधर्मस्य नेत्रभूतद्वयम् आचार्यस्थापनयुगलं काञ्ची शृङ्गेरी च उभयपीठयोः आचार्यपादैः अनुगृहीतः अयं महोत्सवः। महोत्सवं तम् अधिकृत्य अद्यारभ्य दिनपञ्चात्मकं रामगुणानुभवे स्नातुं सर्वे वयं सिद्धाः। तस्मिन् शुभावसरे सर्वान्तर्यामी भगवान् हृदिस्थो भूत्वा वाचमिमां प्रेरयतु इति नैकसाष्टाङ्गनमस्कारपूर्वकं विनयं प्रार्थयित्वा प्रारभ्यते। ये भक्ताः संस्कृतभाषायाः अनभिज्ञाः तेषामपि अवगमनार्थम् आङ्ग्लभाषायां प्रवचनमिदं भविष्यति। Countless prostrations at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, who chose to incarnate as Sri Rama in the Treta Yuga for the resurrection of Dharma. There is a tradition in South India that Deepavali is associated with the death of Narakasura and the boons that he procured from the Lord. There is also an equal tradition in the north that Deepavali is celebrated to commemorate the homecoming of Sri Rama from 14 years of exile, when he came back to Ayodhya to be crowned as the king of Ayodhya, of Kosala Desha. There is a second homecoming which is just few days away. After centuries of waiting, Sri Ramachandramurti, as the child Rama, is again going to be consecrated on the sacred Dwadashi Tithi, the forthcoming Monday, to celebrate this epochal event, which is going to be a watershed in the timeless history of this country. The Asthiga Samajam has decided that all the series of lectures connected with the Sri Ramanavami series of this year, 2024, will be themed around the Srimad Ramayana. In order that this message may reach a wider audience who are not familiar with Tamil, it was suggested and immediately accepted that this series of 5 days would be in English, as against the normal practice of giving the discourse in Tamil. This date, 22nd January, is bound to be inscribed not merely in letters of gold, but also in the hearts of the innumerable devotees of Sri Rama, who have been longing for this homecoming of the Lord. The avatars of the Lord are beyond count. Avataraha asankyayaha harege satvanidege dvijaha, as the Bhagavatam would phrase it. It is a very great and happy augury, a blessing which cannot be counted, that this Prana Pratishtha has been singularly blessed by the two great acharyas of the two prominent peetams that have traced their lineage from Adi Shankaracharya, the Kanchi Kamakoti Peetam and the Sringeri Sharada Peetam. Both the acharyas of these venerable peetams have blessed this consecration. It is also perhaps a divine coincidence that the qualities of Rama, which have been initially posed in the form of queries to Narada in the beginning of the Ramayana, these qualities which number 16, they are being elaborated upon on a day which also has the same number. We begin on the 16th of January. It is another providential coincidence that at this particular juncture, the Asthiga Samajam is held by a person from whom I have got great respect and regard, with whom I have been fortunate to have been associated for more than 4 decades. Sri Sitaraman Sir, who is himself an ardent devotee of Sri Rama. His name itself resonates with the subject of this year's series. Among the various avatars of the Lord, 10 avatars are famously known to all devotees of Vishnu. Of these 10 avatars, Sri Rama is considered to be the Maryada Purushottama. If Krishna Avatara is the Leela Avatara, where there is an abundance of Leela, Rama Avatara is a Guna Avatara, where the virtues of the Lord, they go beyond mortal counting. In this great ocean of Rama Gunas, albeit a saltless ocean, we will try to immerse ourselves so that this immersion can prevent a second immersion in the sagara of samsara. The very beginning of the Ramayana shows how important this Guna Anubhava is. We are all familiar with the story, how it commences. Before we start with the Guna Anubhava proper, let me begin with an earnest prayer to the Lord, the Prince of Ayodhya, the sovereign of the entire universe, and the indwelling emperor of my heart, to grace and purify this speech so that it may touch everyone with devotion and take us forward and closer to the Supreme Lord. With this prayer we will begin. As we know, the Ramayana of Valmiki begins with a conversation between Valmiki and Narada. Tapasmadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidamvaram Naradam paripapracha Valmikihi munipungavam Kohanvasmin sampratam loke Gunavan kascha viryavane Dharmagyascha kritagyascha Satyavagyo dridhavrataha Charitrena chako yuktaha Sarvabhuteshu kokitaha Vidvankaha kasamartascha Kascha eka priyadarshanaha Atmavankaha Jitakrodaha Dutimankaha Anasuyakaha Kasya bibyati devascha Jataroshasya samyuge Etadicham yagam shrothum Param kautukalam gime Maharshetvam samartosi Nyahatumevam vidham naram. The sage Valmiki was blessed by a visit from the Devarshi Narada. There was a gnawing doubt in Valmiki's mind. Mind you, he was a contemporary of the Lord, There is a reference in the Ramayana that Rama visited Valmiki's ashramam during the course of his exile. He was a contemporary, a senior contemporary, no doubt. He knew the entire story of Rama. You knew of the divine qualities of Rama. It is not that he was unaware. But still, at one juncture, when Rama abandoned Sita in advanced state of pregnancy, and Sita sought shelter at the ashram of Valmiki, a doubt began to gnaw at his mind. If the great Rama, who is considered to be the embodiment of all virtues, if he could abandon his dharmically wedded wife, and that too in an advanced state of pregnancy, is there no person in the entire world who can be considered the perfect example of virtue, the apotheosis of all Kalyana Gunas? This was the doubt which was at the back of his mind when Narada came to grace him. It is a very remarkable feature in the Puranas that wherever Narada comes, a great metamorphosis takes place. Narada is the harbinger of a great change, a transformation, because he comes as the divine messenger. He does not come on his own. He acts as the chief executive to execute the wishes of the Lord. Having offered his respects and prostrations to Narada, Valmiki asked him, I would like to know if there is a single person in whom all these qualities, the 16 qualities, are imbued. Please do not tell me that there was such a perfect person somewhere in the distant past, or that such a person is likely to be born at some time in the unforeseeable future. But I would like to know whether in the present world at this particular given time, there is a person who is the embodiment of all these virtues. And the very first virtue, this is Gunavan. Kongas means Sampratam Loke Gunavan Kascha Viryavan. Guna is virtue. It is the opposite of dosha, which is a fault. All these gunas, having said Gunavan as a corrective indicator, he proceeds to elaborate on what gunas he would like to know from his model hero. Gunavan Kascha Viryaman. Being a king, he must be unassailable in his valor. Virya becomes a very important criterion. Gunavan Kascha Viryaman. Dharmagyascha Kritagyascha Satyavakyo Dridhavrataha. You must be fully conversant with Dharma. All aspects of Dharma. You must also be fully indebted to people who have helped him. You must not be a person who will ever forget a good thing which is done to him. Kritagyascha. One who does not forget the good rendered unto him. Dharmagyascha Kritagyascha Satyavakyo Dridhavrataha. He must be true at all times. Never one to slightly even waver from the path of truth. Dridhavrataha. One who, having taken up something, will see to the completion, to its logical fruition. Never one to abandon a project or a work taken up for whatsoever reason. Dridhavrataha charitrena chako yuktaha. All these gunas, all these qualities, they collectively constitute what is called as charitra. There are two words in English. One word is character, the other word is conduct. If we are able to go back in memory by about 2 generations, in those days, any person who sought a job in an organization was asked to bring a certificate of good conduct from some respectable person in society. And the usual phraseography would be something on these lines. I hereby certify that so-and-so is of satisfactory conduct to the best of my knowledge. There is a safety clause. Nobody has ever certified the character of a person. You can certify only the conduct, because character is intrinsic. It is not displayed. When character is translated into one's own conduct, that conduct is itself called as conduct. That is what we call as vrittam in Sanskrit. The conduct of a person which is seen in his day-to-day actions, in his day-to-day activities. That is vrittam. Whereas character is shiram. That is in the innermost recesses of one's own heart. Only two people know whether you are good character or not. One is the person himself or herself, and the other is the Supreme Lord. No third person can know or vouchsafe for anybody's character. You can vouchsafe for a conduct, and only to the extent that it is seen in your activities in the day-to-day world, which are observable by people. So, charitram is conduct. Charitrena chiko yuktaha sarvabhuteshu ko hitaha. Is there somebody who considers the well-being of all creatures, from the unicellular amoeba to the supreme Chaturmukha Brahma? All the creatures must be always, they must be happy. And what can be done to keep them happy? What can be done to keep their welfare in mind? What can be done to ensure their overall kshema? Is there a person with certain attitude? Sarvabhuteshu ko hitaha. Mind the words. Sarvabhuteshu ko hitaha. Not sarvabhuteshu ko kapriyaha. Priya is what is pleasant. Hita is what is wholesome. So, the thinking must be that whatever I do, whatever I speak, whatever I think must be wholesome. It must do something intrinsically good to the other person. It is not sufficient if he or she is pleased. You can utter 1,000 sentences to please somebody, but it's of no use if ultimately it is not going to help in his or her spiritual growth. So what is actually wholesome? That is hita. Sarvabhuteshu ko hitaha vidwan kaha. He must be a master of all knowledge. Vidwan. Then there is another word, samarthascha. Samartha is one who is competent. In today's parlance, we call it as core competence. To be a vidwan may imply theoretical knowledge, but that theoretical knowledge must also be capable of being applied in practice. Only then this vidvat will become samarthyam. Vidwan kaha kasamarthascha kascha eka priyadarshana. He must be pleasing to the eye of everyone who beholds him. This is a very, very difficult proposition to fulfill. What appeals to one person does not appeal to somebody else. That is why you find that everybody cannot have a common idea of beauty. What is beauty to somebody jars with somebody else. But Lord Rama perhaps is the only person who was Priyadarshana, very pleasing to the eye, not only to his parents, not only to his brothers, not only to his dearest Sita, not only to the immediate family or friends, but even to those on the other side of the divide, like Shurpanaka or Ravana or Kumbhakarna. They were bewitched by his beauty. The greatest of sages like Vishwamitra, they were bewitched by his beauty to the extent that he forgot what he had brought him for. He was so enamored of the beauty that he paused to sing a hymn which became famous as the Suprabhatam. The hymn which emanated from Vishwamitra became immortal. In any kind of Suprabhatam, that becomes the first sloka. Kausalya Supraja Rama Purva Sandhya Pravartate Uttishta Narashardula Kartavyam Daivamannikam. So, the bewitching beauty of the Lord, Kaschaika Priyadarshanaha Atmavan. This is a very, very important thing, because all the other virtues like humility or steadfastness to truth or respectful behavior towards elders or vidvat or scholarship, all these things, they subserve this greater requirement of Atmatvam. Atmavan. Atmavan literally translated would mean one who has the Atma, but it is not to be construed as such. It is to be construed as one who has realized the Atma. You cannot have the Atma because then Atma would be the possession and you would be the possessor. Atma is your very self. You cannot possess the Atma, you can only be the Atma. You can be, it's also a misnomer. You are already the Atma. You have not understood it. One who realizes that he is really the Atma and not merely a collection of bones and flesh and nerves and muscle. He is not merely the physical body. One who realizes this, that he is essentially the Atma, he is the Atmavan. Atmavan kaha jitakrodaha. Atman ko jitakrodaka, Jyutiman kaha anasuyakaha. He must have conquered his anger, jitakrodaka. For the vast majority of us, why almost for all of us, we are conquered by anger. There is a phrase in English when you get angry, that phrase goes something like this: don't lose your shirt. So it only indicates that when you get angry, you lose something. It is a sense of loss, a loss of quietude, a loss of peace of mind, a loss of so many things, a loss of virtue also. But one who has conquered anger, he is not enslaved by anger, but he knows anger has got a role to play, especially in dealing with a person like Ravana. So imagine if the Lord had been too mild in his demeanor, and he had simply kept quiet in the face of the abduction of Sita, what would have been the course of matters? It is unimaginable. Where anger has got to be displayed, it has got to be displayed. But the important nuance is this: you must display anger towards the evil, not towards the evildoer. In the words of the late lamented Professor Shankar Narayanan, he said, he slew the evil, but salvage the evildoer. So, evil must be attacked, eliminated. For that, you require anger to be channelized against evil. This channelization can take place only if you are the master of anger. If you see the Aranyakanda, while facing the 14,000 Rakshasas headed by Khara, Rama decided that he would get angry. He called upon anger, it immediately came to his aid to destroy these demons. Then, once the purpose was served, it went away at his command. Rama Krodam Param Beje Vadartam Sarvarakshasam. That is the hallmark of a Jitakroda. If you ask anger to come, it will come. If you ask that the anger to go away, it will go away. It is at your beck and call. You are the master of anger, Jitakrodaha. There is another similar word in the Sundarakanda where Anjaneya describes Rama as Sthanakroda Prakartacha. Sthanakrodaha means he knew where to show his anger and where not to show. You must be able to pick your battles, as the phrase goes in English. You should not waste your anger on something very trivial, but where the situation demands it, you should know how to exercise that anger and in what quantum, to what effect. All these things put together, they are they are indicated by the word Jitakrodaha. Atmaman kaha Jitakrodaha, Dutiman kaha Anasuyakaha. There is a phrase in English, the face is the index of the mind. In Tamil we say, Agattinalu Mugattide. So, when all these qualities are conjoined in one single individual, what happens is, the face acquires a luster, a glow of its own, which cannot be imparted cosmetically. And that is what is called Dutiman kaha Anasuyakaha. A person who is so confident of his own persona, he has no security problems, no questions of either being inferior or superior to somebody else. So he can afford to be totally free from jealousy. Anasuyakaha. Kasya bibhita devascha jataroshasya samyuge He does not get angry, but if situation provokes him to anger, then the anger is such that even the very gods will tremble at his sight. The gods will fear the anger of such a person. We have got a saying in Tamil, Sadhu Mirandal Kadu Kolladu. Kasya Bibhiti Devascha Jataroshasya Samyuge. For anger to be effective, if it is not to be a paper tiger, then people must fear your anger. The Bharata makes it very clear. One who aspires for something that he cannot attain, and one whose anger is fruitless, such a person will never have peace of mind. So the anger, when it is displayed, must inculcate a sense of fear even in the very devas. Kasya bibir devascha jataroshasya samyuge etadichami aham shrotum param kautugalam gime. This is what I desire to know from you. You are the correct person because you have been traversing all the three worlds, the mortal world, the world of the devas, and the nether worlds. Shutva chaitat tulokagnaha Valmikehe Narado Vachaka Shuyatam iti chamantra prahishtaha vakyam abrivit. That is how the next sloka goes. There is a very interesting thing here. Was Valmiki really not aware that Rama was the embodiment of all these virtues that he was seeking to know from Narada? The question begs an answer. Valmiki definitely knew that Rama was the perfect example, the perfect embodiment of all these virtues. How do you say that? How do you come to this conclusion that Valmiki was aware? If you see these slokas carefully, you will find the word kaha, which is used 10 times, either in its direct form or in one of its case endings, vibhakti. Please count. Konvasmin sampratam loke Gunavan kascha viryavan dharmajnascha kritagyascha satyavakyo dridhavrataha charitrena cha ko yuktaha. Only the ka must be counted. Konvasmin sampratam loke gunavan kascha viryavan dharmajnascha kritagyascha satyavakyo dridhavrataha charitrena cha ko yuktaha sarvabhuteshu ko hitaha vidwan kaha kasamartascha kascheka priyadarshanaha atmavan kaha jitakrodhaha dyutiman kaha anasuyakaha Kasya bibhiti devascha jataroshasya samyuge. Konvasmin sampratam loke gunavan kasya viryavan dharmagyascha kritagyascha satyavakyo dridhavrataha charitrena chako yuktaha sarvabhuteshu kohitaha vidwan kaha kasamartascha kascheka priyadarshanaha atmavan kaha jitakrodhaha dyutiman kaha anasuyakaha kasya bibhiti devascha jataroshasya samyuge. You have got 10 times the same word is being repeated 10 times. What does it mean? The word kaha, as an interrogative, it will indicate who. It will give the meaning who. When it is used as an affirmative, then it has got so many meanings. Kaha, one of the meanings of the word kaha is Lord Narayana. So, the same Narayana, the very same Lord, who incarnated as 10 different avatars, he is the embodiment of all these virtues. I am quite aware of it. Still, I want to know from him because the scriptures ordain that any knowledge which is gained from the Guru will alone bear fruit. Even if you read 1,000 tomes and you are a master of all knowledge, you can never realize the Lord without the grace of the Guru. This is the unanimous verdict of all the scriptures. I will not go into it because that is outside the purview of the subject that we have taken up. Without the grace of the Guru, God realization is impossible. It is the considered unanimous opinion of all the scriptures. There is no single exception to this rule at all. Even in those cases where there is no apparent Guru who has blessed this disciple and the disciple blossoms into a full-grown jnani, you will find that the principle of the Guru operates as the indweller in the heart. Like in the case of the Mahaswami of Kanchi, Ramana Maharshi of Tiruvannamalai and Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswami of Sringeri, all the three of them did not have an external Guru to guide them and bring them to self-realization. Yet they were all Jivan Muktas, great jnanis. But In their case, the indweller, the Bhagavan himself, the Antaryami himself became the Guru. Without the grace of the Guru, there is no God realization. There is no progress in the spiritual path. So, I want to learn of these virtues as embodied in a human personality from you whom I consider to be my Guru. So, these are the questions which led to the Ramayana. It is an interesting thing to note. If you take the text and count, you will find that in response to these 16 qualities which Valmiki asked for, Narada narrates as many as 70 qualities, more than 4 times. 70 qualities over 11 and a half slokas. From the 8th sloka to the 18th or 19th sloka, you will find 70 qualities. I have counted them. You can go home and check it. There are 70 qualities that have been narrated by Narada. Why this emphasis on guna? This is a very important thing. This brings us to a very crucial philosophical fundamental question. What is the purpose of human existence? At one point of time or the other in our lives, we are all faced with this question. Over a period of time, you acquire some knowledge, some degrees, you get a job, you establish yourself financially, you build up a family, you have seen all that is to be seen in the materialistic world, yet in some remote corner of the mind there is a nagging doubt that something is left incomplete. There is something beyond all this, I do not know what, but I know that I am not complete. This is the feeling which comes to many people with a slight bit of samskara. It comes to many people in middle age. What is the purpose of human existence? The Shastras clearly tell us that the purpose of human existence is not to eat, sleep and raise a family, to be born and to be taken back to dust. That is not the purpose of human existence. This, particularly the human janma, the human birth which has been bequeathed to us, is for the purpose of uplifting us spiritually, so that at the end of the journey covering several thousands of janmas, one may merge with the Supreme, or rather realize, merge with the Supreme is the Dvaita way of looking at it. If you look at it from an Advaitic point of view, so that one may realize that he is himself the Supreme, he was unaware all these days, he realized that he is himself the Atma Sarupa or the Brahma Sarupa. That is the ultimate goal of all human existence, so that one may not be born once again in this world and get caught in the quagmire of samsara. Several years back, more than 3 decades back, when the centenary celebrations of the Mahaswami of Kanchi were in progress, at that time, 8 cassettes were released containing the divine Arulvak of His Holiness. Of these 8 cassettes, 1 cassette was exclusively in Sanskrit. Very simple Sanskrit, such as could be understood by even one with a very modicum of knowledge. The title of that Upanyasa was Janmana Padam. The starting words were Janmana Kim Padam, Janmana Padam, Janma Ragityameva. What is the purpose of human life? The purpose is not to be born again. You have to be born so that you can work yourself to a state where you are not born again. It's a paradoxical statement, apparently paradoxical statement, but it is true. Unless you are born, unless you are blessed with a human birth, you cannot strive to a state where you will not be born once again. This is the ultimate goal of all sadhana. This is what the scriptures tell us. Where do we begin? The wisdom of Advaita Vedanta is the pinnacle. It is a ladder at the top of which you have got this Advaitic Jnana. And the first step in that ladder, which will take you forward, is virtue. In the words of Mahanshi Shivansar, who was born as the younger brother of the Mahaswami in his Purvashrama, he was also a great realized soul, a Siddha Purusha in his own right. The world knows much of the Mahaswami. Very few know about Mahanshi Shivansar. Fortunately, by his grace, the speaker had the good fortune of having darshan of this Mahan several times before he quit his mortal coil. In his magnum opus, Enipadigal Mandargal, Sri Shivan Sir gives an aphorism, so to say, virtue is wisdom. Wisdom does not mean simply going to a forest and sitting there, holding your breath, or trying to enter into samadhi, all those things. If you are ordained to be established in samadhi, it will come to you. You cannot make an effort and claim that you have entered samadhi. Nobody can do it. Unless you are spiritually ripe for it, unless samadhi is bequeathed to you by the divine, you cannot enter samadhi. So, the first step what we can do, what is perceptibly possible in this world is cultivation of virtue. And this virtue, when cultivated over a considerable period of time, when it is consistently practiced and made part of your very warp and woof of your own being, this virtue will cleanse your heart. It will endow you with chitta shuddhi. And once the chitta is a word which cannot be translated in English. So I will use the same word because the antakarana or the inner instrument is divided into four based on functional differentiation. When it is constantly meandering from one object to the other, like a monkey which has gone wild, it is called the mind. When it tries to assess a situation, see the logic behind a course of action and decides on a particular course of action, then it is called the buddhi or the intellect. It is a function of logic. When the ego identifies itself with the body, with the position, with your wealth, and with all the ephemeral things in life, then it is called as ahankara. Bereft of all these conditioning, when it becomes shanta, when it becomes quiet and becomes fit to meditate on the Lord, it is called as the chitta. So, to use the word mind would be a gross misnomer. It is a chitta, and chitta has to be rendered pure. Once the chitta is 100% pure, no further effort is required at all. There is no sadhana further to be done. There is no further sadhana to be done. The Atma Swarupa will simply shine forth in all its resplendent glory in a Shuddha Chitta. And for making this Chitta pure and absolutely ready to receive the divine grace which will bestow self-realization, it is necessary to cultivate all these virtues. There is another angle to it. We chase wealth, we chase power, we chase position. Everybody wants to mint money, everybody wants to have a coveted position. Everybody wants to acquire a lot of secular knowledge, a dual degree. You don't want a degree which will be confined to the shores of this country. Immediately after finishing a basic graduation, almost everybody wants to go abroad. You want to have the tag of a degree conferred by a foreign university. All these things we pursue with a lot of effort, with a lot of resources and a lot of energy being spent on them. But we don't pause to introspect even for a second that none of these things are going to be carried forward to the next Janma. However wealthy you may be, whatever the position you may occupy, whatever be the extent of your secular knowledge, none of these things are going to be taken into another Janma, into another Loka. You may have a postdoctoral research done in this Janma, but yet in the next Janma you will have to start with the alphabet, basic alphabet. There is no gainsaying this fact at all. It is a great blessing of God that He has not made any provision for the wealth of this Janma to be transferred or taken into another Janma. Just imagine. For the sake of argument, as an hypothesis, you imagine, supposing there had been a provision in the divine scheme of things for repatriation of wealth to the other world or to the other Janma, even 50% repatriation. If you earn 1 crore rupees, you can take 50 lakhs to the next Janma. Supposing such a provision had been there in the divine scheme of things, what would have happened? As it is, many people, they don't care for their parents. We have unfortunately reached the state where the statute has to provide that if you don't take care of your parents, you will be hauled before a court of law. It has to be enforced. What should have been a natural tendency to look after one's parents, especially in their later years, is now we have reduced it to a state where it has got to be enforced by statute. Piety cannot be enforced by statute. Statute can only make the law, it can only tell you this is what you have got to do. But if you have got to practice that piety in your life, if you have got to practice that duty, you require role models like Rama who can inspire you. Statute alone cannot inspire you. It is only a letter of the law. The spirit must be imbued from role models like Sri Rama. Unfortunately, in today's world, we have got role models for fashion. You have got role models for sports. You have got role models for so many other things in life. But we don't have a role model for virtue. Unless you go to the Ramayana, unless you go to characters like Sri Rama or Bharata or Lakshmana or Anjaneya for that matter, you will not have a role model for virtue. And that is why these satsangams become more and more important, because there is no other avenue where we can cultivate this virtue. Virtue or guna is the only thing that can be transferred from one life to another. Please pause for a moment and think over it. In the calmness, in the solitude of your houses, when you are not disturbed by anything else, pause for a moment and think about this. How do you say that gunas can be transferred from one janma to another? If wealth cannot be transferred, and it's a good thing it cannot be transferred, if there is a provision for repatriation of wealth, what would have happened? Many children would have become murderers of their own parents because they don't want to lose this 50% which is going to be repatriated to the next janma. So, to save humankind from this greatest of sins, God has provided that whatever you earn in this janma, either you can enjoy it or you can gift it to a deserving person or a deserving cause, or you can leave it to your progeny to enjoy as legacy. There is no fourth avenue for deployment of wealth. There are only two avenues, according to Bhartrihari. In his Niti Shatakam, he says there are only two avenues. Dhanam bhogascha nashascha. Sisraha gateha bhavanti vittasya. Yona dadati na bhunte. Tritiya gatiki bhavati tasya vittasya. There is either you can enjoy bhogaha or you can gift it to somebody, that is dhanam. If both these avenues are not explored, if you are not capable of enjoying yourself, you don't want to part with it for any noble cause, what will happen? The third avenue is nasha. It will be simply wasted. So, yona dadati rabhunte tritiya gatiki bhavati tasya vittasya. So, it is bound to be wasted. One who does not enjoy himself within the perimeter of dharma, one who is not magnanimous enough to share it with people who require it more. For such a person, the wealth will become a waste. It is not going to be of any use at all. So, wealth cannot be taken. But gunas can be transferred across janmas. How do you say this? You cannot have scientific evidence for this, because these are all in the realm of social sciences, where the precision of physical sciences cannot be brought into play. But if we consider carefully, we will understand that gunas can be transferred. In the same family, born of the same womb, you have got children. One is short-tempered, the other person is very calm. The one person is very intelligent, the other child is a dullard. You find all these apparent inconsistencies in the progeny of the same parents. How do you explain? They have come from the same DNA. How do you explain these changes? This is because they have brought forward a balance of vasana, an accumulation of vasana from the previous janmas that manifests itself either in terms of lesser desire or more desire, greater anger or lesser anger, greater intelligence or lesser intelligence. All these things, it is something like what you call as, in universities, if you want to move from one college to another, there is something called, you can enter the, first you have completed the first year course in a college, then you can enter the second year, you can directly enter the second year in another college. Such a provision exists in some universities, in some courses. Likewise, to the extent that you have cultivated virtue, to the extent that you have eschewed vice in this Janma, you will be allowed to take off from that juncture in the next Janma. This is the provision that God has created in His scheme of things. So what we should actually be striving for is to increase our virtue, to reduce our vices, to control our anger and desire. This is the only thing which is worth striving for in this Janma. Unfortunately, the Maya of the Lord acts in such a way that we are blind to all these things, but we are very open to things which really don't matter. So to inspire us to cultivate virtue, to inspire us to grow and uplift ourselves spiritually, the gunas of the Lord have been described in extreme detail in the Ramayana, not only in the first sarga. The first sarga, we are dealing with the first sarga now. In the course of the next 4 days, it is proposed to take up not only the gunas which are detailed in the Balakanda, but also kanda by kanda, in the Ayodhya kanda, in the Aranya kanda, in the Kishkinda kanda, in the Sundara kanda, in the Yuddha kanda, through various perspectives. This perspective here, when Valmiki questions, or rather requests Narada to enlighten him, the perspective is Valmiki's. When Narada goes on to describe in several slokas the bountiful gunas of the Lord, it is Narada's perspective. Then you will find Janaka's perspective when he is bewitched by the divine form and say, Imo Kumaro Bhadranthe Devatulya Parakramo. We will come to it later. In the Ayodhya Ganda, you have got again Valmiki's perspective in 2 sargas, first 2 sargas of Ayodhya Ganda, where the qualities of the Lord are simply, they come as a cascading torrent from the tongue of Valmiki. Again, in the Aranya Ganda, you will find even a person who is in the other side of the divide, like Shurpanaka, she goes into raptures while describing Rama. Again, you will find the same gunas of Rama being eulogized by Tara while talking to Vali. You will find that in the Kishkinda Ganda, in the Sundara Ganda, you will find Anjaneya describing the gunas of the Lord at various junctures to various people. Most importantly, Sita, and thereafter to Ravana himself. In the Yuddha Ganda, you will find the Rakshasas 3, the ladies of the Rakshasa origin who comfort Sita. They were in a minority, but still they were able to realize the gunas of the Lord and describe them vividly to Sita. So the entire Ramayana, from the Balaganda to the Pattabhisheka, if you see, the entire Ramayana is a recounting of the qualities of the heart, qualities of the head and heart, as the phrase goes in English. Why the heart has been placed second next to the head is because qualities of the head, they are intellectual in nature. But more than the intellectual qualities, it is the emotional qualities which constitute the true personality of a man. So that's why you got the qualities of head and heart, not vice versa. You don't say qualities of the heart and the head, you don't say. Once the qualities of the heart are imbibed, there is nothing further to be done. Intellect must subserve the heart. That is why qualities of head and heart, they are being now realized with the present generation. In the previous generation, IQ was considered to be very important, the intelligence quotient. Today, it is replaced with EQ, emotional quotient. How you are able to get along with people, your peers, how you are able to develop your soft skills, as against the hard skills which constitute the hard core competence of a person. The soft skills are very important. How you are able to get with your people, how you are able to get along with your people, not only with your peers, but with your subordinates, with people who supervise you. You must be able to get along with all kinds of people. Teamwork, how you are able to work as a team. All these things, they come within the purview of EQ, and that is what is called quality of heart. Quality of head is IQ. So both these things, they are summed up in the phrase qualities of head and heart. These qualities, they constitute the very spine of the Ramayana, the very heart of the Ramayana, so to say. That is why you have got the repeated recounting of these virtues of the Lord, so that we may be able to derive inspiration from these qualities and uplift ourselves, so that we can take this as a gift of God to the next Janma, and ultimately to a state where no Janma awaits us. The Janma, the state which is called as moksha. So, the gunas, they acquire great importance in our own spiritual growth. That is why we will be able to immerse ourselves in this ocean of gunas. When Almiki asked these questions to Narada, Narada was extremely happy. The word used there in the sloka is this. Srotumichami aham mune. Narada, when he heard this query of Valmiki, he was overcome with joy that somebody has asked him a question which could lead to a narration of the Ramayana itself. Etachutva Sulokagyaha Valmikege Narado Vachaha Shruyatam iti chamantra Pragrishtaha Vakyam Abrivit. Krishna is happy. Pragrishta, he was immensely happy. Pragrishtaha Vakyam Abrivit. Bhagavo Durlabhascheva Etvaya Kirtita Gunaha. You have asked for a whole host of qualities. Each single quality itself is very difficult to find, and we have asked for all these qualities to be found in combination in the same individual at one particular point of time, the present time. Bhagavo Durlabhascheva Etvaya Kirtita Gunaha Mune Bhakshyami Aham Buddhva Tair Yuktaha Shuyatam Naraha. I will contemplate on this matter. I will know first, and then I will share it with you. Mune Vakshami Aham Buddhva Tair Yukta Shruyatam Naraha Ikshvakuvamsha Prabhava Rahamo Nama Janishutaha Niyatatma Mahaviryaha Jyutiman Drutiman Vashi Buddhiman Nitiman Vagmi Shiman Shatrunibarghanaha Vipulamso Mahabahuhu Kambugrivo Mahahanuhu. The person whom you are seeking is very much present. He is right now the emperor of the Kosala Desha, the king of Ayodhya. He chose to incarnate himself. The word incarnation does not come here. At the very end of the Pattabhisheka Sarka, the secret which Valmiki was trying to protect all along, that secret is divulged. Sakshat Vishnuhu, Sakshat Ramo Raghusreshtaha Vishnuhu Satyaparakramaha. Shesho Lakshmana Uchyate. Sakshat Ramo Raghusreshtaha Shesho Lakshmana Uchyate. The Avatar Rahasya is expounded only to the very fag end of the epic. After the coronation of Rama, that is expounded. Till such time, he tries to keep a guarded mystery, keep it as a guarded mystery. He treats Rama as a man. Even at the final moments when Ravana has been felled and Brahma comes and asks him, why are you keeping quiet? Why are you remaining indifferent when Sita has entered this fire? Even at that juncture, when the Avatara Karya has been completed, Rama does not reveal his divinity. He says, Atmanam Manusham Manye Ramam Dasharathatmajam. I consider myself as ordinary mortal. I am Dasharatha's son. Nothing less, nothing more. If there is something beyond this, you please tell me. Yoham yasya yataschaham bhagavanstad brevitume. You tell me. I do not know anything beyond the fact that I am Dasharatha's son. So that was the angle from which Valmiki portrayed. But the world knows that it is an avatara. In the case of Kamban, from beginning to end, he portrays Rama as the avatar of the Lord. The Sarveshwara who chose to manifest himself as Rama, he was born in the lineage of the Ikshvaku Vamsha. Ikshvaku Prabhavaha. That is how the delineation of the gunas of Rama starts in Narada's words. Ikshvaku Prabhava Vamshaha Ramo Nama Janishutaha. There is a very interesting connotation here. The entire lineage of Ikshvaku, the Raghu Vamsha, they were exemplars of all the desirable qualities. We have Kalidasa's authority on this. In his immortal work Raghuvamsha, in the very beginning, Kalidasa, again, in 4 slokas, he recounts 16 qualities, again 16 qualities of all the kings who were there prior to Rama in that race. Soham ajanma shuddhanam aphalodaya karmanam asamudra kshitishanam anaka ratavartmanam. They were pure from birth. Soham ajanma shuddhanam. It is not as if they were wayward in their early years. Chastened by life, they turned over a new leaf towards the end of their mortal sojourn. It was not like that. From birth, from conception to death, they were pure. Soham ajanma shuddhana, aphalodaya karmana. And when they took up projects, they would not rest till that project was successfully completed. There was no half-heartedness about their efforts. Aphalodaya karmana, asamudra kshitishana. The empire was so vast that the boundaries were not man-made, but the sea was the boundary for the land. Asamudra kshitishana. The entire world was theirs to rule. They were the monarchs of all that they surveyed. Literally, asamudra kshitishana anaka ratavartmanam. Naka means the Devaloka. Their chariots could traverse the Devaloka. We have seen in the modern world amphibian vehicles which can traverse over surface as well as over water. But a third dimension was there to the chariots of the Ikshvaku kings. They could traverse on the road, on the water, and also in air. This was attributable to the blessing of Vasishtha. This is what Kalidasa tells in the 5th Sarga of the Raghuvamsha. He says, Raghu's chariot would brook no interference in all the 3 modes of transport because of the blessing of Vasishtha. Like the cloud which is carried away by the force of the wind which pushes it, Raghu's chariot did not brook any interference. Vasishtha mantrokshanaja prabhavat udanvadakashamagi dhareshu marutsakasyeva balahakasya gatir vijagnena gitat ratasya anaka ratavartmanam asamudra kshitishanam anaka ratavartmanam yata vidhi hutagninam. They performed all the Vedic rituals in accordance with the Shastric commandments. They did not take things into their own hand and decide that this is the way it should be done. They were strict in their observance of the Shastric scriptures. Yata vidhi utagninam yata kamarchitartina. Being emperors, there were always numerous requests for help from various people who were indigent. And these kings, they knew how to reward an indigent person. What was his specific requirement? If you give 100 rupees to a person at midnight, he is hungry, he has not eaten for 3 days, what will he do with this 100 rupees? And it is already midnight, the shops are all closed, you cannot get even a single plantain or a fruit you cannot get. How will he satisfy his hunger? What he requires is food, solid food, not a rupee note. You should know whom to please and how to satisfy his desire. Yata kamarchitarchana. For a person who was in need of shelter, he is already has eaten his fill, his hunger is satisfied, he wants a roof where he can relax for the night. For such a person, food is of no importance. For somebody who already has a roof, if you offer him a roof, it does not make any sense. So each individual has got his own specific requirements. Those requirements were intuitively understood by the kings of the Ikshvaku race, and they were satisfied without being asked for. That is very important. At a glance, they could see who required what, and they could satisfy those wants without being specifically asked to do so. Yata kamarchitarchinam, yata aparada dandanam, yata kala prabodhina. And the punishment that they had to mete out, as kings was absolutely in proportion to the intensity of the crime. Yatha parada dandana. If you go to the courts, you will find that the statue of justice, the goddess of justice, is always portrayed having a scale in her hand. That scale, it is not a digital scale, it is a traditional scale where the needle has to be absolutely upright. It cannot veer even 1 degree this way or that way. That is to show that the punishment must be absolutely in proportion to the crime, not less, not more. Yatha parada dandanam, yatha kamarchitartinam, yatha parada dandanam, yatha kala prabodhinam. And they respected the Shastric dictum that one should never lie in bed at sunrise or sunset. So they were well up and going. Well before dawn, they would begin their day. Yatha kala prabodhinam. Saishave abhyasta vidyanam yauvane visheshinam vardake munivrittinam yogena ante tanutyajam. Their childhood was spent in acquiring knowledge. As the Tamil adage goes, Edamayil kal. If the knowledge is not acquired in childhood, you cannot hope to acquire that knowledge in your later years, in your 60s or 70s. The grasping capability of the brain gets dulled. It is not as sharp as it was when you are 10 or 12 or 13 or 15. So, Saishave Abhyasta Vidyanam Yauvane Visheshana. They were all householders. They were not sannyasis. So, householders are permitted to enjoy the sensual pleasures within the fence of dharma. Yauvane Visheshana. Their youth was spent in enjoying those pleasures which are permitted by the Shastras. Vardake Munivrittina. They outgrew their desires. They were able to, because they were able to enjoy those desires within the specifications of dharma, they outgrew their desires over a period of time. By the time they become senior citizens, Vardake Munivrittina, they conducted their lives as if they were sages. Vardake Munivrittina. And the last pada is very interesting. Yogena ante tanutyajam. There is not a single case in recorded history of this entire solar dynasty where you find that the king was afflicted by a foul disease. He was bedridden for several years, or he was admitted to the ICU, or he was kept on ventilator. No such case at all. First of all, there were no ICUs there in those times, no ventilators either, but a corresponding treatment could have been there, but there is no record of such a medical treatment being undergone by any of these kings. They were yogis in their own right. Yogena ante tanutyajam. And when the last moment came, they had the spiritual ripeness, like the ripe fruit which falls off the tree of its own accord. They were able to sacrifice their body. They did not sacrifice their lives. Remember the distinction. Tanu means body. What we call in Tamil as udal, not uyir. We call the prana. Prana is the uyir, that is the life force. They distinguished between the body and the life force. So they gave up the body. They did not give up their spirit. You cannot give up the spirit. You cannot give up the Atma. The Atma is your own self. It's bound to be that throughout. So they gave up the body. Yogena ante tanutyajam. If the younger days were spent in controlled bhoga, they had the control over death in the last days to sacrifice their bodies by yoga. So you have got a combination, a very wonderful combination of bhoga and yoga to be found in the history of these kings. Yogena ante tanutyajam. Tyagaya samvritarthanam. They acquired lot of wealth, and those acquisitions were not for the purpose of simply greasing their own pockets. It was not for building personal wealth, but for giving away 1,000-fold. If they acquired a particular amount by way of tax or by way of tributes from the vassal kings, it was given back to the subjects 1,000-fold. The wonderful words of Kalidasa sum up as perhaps nobody else could do it. Kalidasa is always known for his apt use of similes and examples. Upama Kalidasasya, as the saying goes, he says, Sahasra gunamutsrishtum adattegi rasam ravihi. The sun takes all the water in the form of a vapor, in the form of a gaseous form from the oceans, and then when it creates the conditions for the clouds to give us rain, it comes in portable form. Water can be drunk straight away. The water from the ocean is full of salt. All the saltish water is converted into potable, drinkable water. It gives 1,000-fold back. So that each king must be like that. He must take the levies, and the levy also has been restricted to a maximum of 1/6 of the total income of their particular subject. That is there in the Bharata Shapata. He says, Badi Shadbhaga Mudritya Nripasya Arakshata Prajaha Adharmaha Yastu Sosyastu Yasyaryo Anumategataha. A king having collected 1/6 of the total income as the maximum tax leviable, if he does not protect his subjects, he incurs great sin, and that sin may fall on that particular person who was responsible for the banishment of Rama to the forest. This is one of the Shapatas in the 38 slokas which have been quoted which have been listed in the Ayodhya Kanda. This is one of the slokas. Badishadbhagamudritya nupasya harakshata prajaha adharmaha yastu sosyastu yasyaryo namategataha. So, the duty of a king is not to collect tax for the sake of it, but only that in order that he may give it back to his subjects manifold. So, Tyagaya Sambritarthana, whether it is giving back to the subjects, whether it is giving dana to the worthy scholars of Vedic repute, Tyagaya Sambritarthana, again, Satyaya Mitabhashina. They were all people of limited words, no question of being very talkative. They were limited in their words so that truth could be preserved. It is a very axiomatic thing. The more you talk, the more likelihood of falsehood creeping into your talk. If you want to preserve truth, you must be absolutely economical with your speech. It will also carry more weight. There is a simple law of supply and demand. If the supply is more, the price goes down. It's basic economics. We know, even while purchasing vegetables or fruits in the day-to-day life, you know that if the supply is profuse, the price goes down. The more you talk, the lesser the weightage that will come to your words. So if you want your words to carry some good weight, they must be measured. They must measured words which will come after a lot of forethought, not the other way around. You should not speak and then think of how to construe this, how to present this in such a way that it will not be misconstrued. The thought must precede the speech, not vice versa. Satyaya mitabhashinam, again, yashase vijigishunam prajayai grihamedinam. They conquered various territories. It was not to subjugate the peoples of other countries, but only to establish their glory as kings and warriors. Yashase vijigishunam prajayai grihamedina. They were householders, not to indulge in sensual pleasures, but in order that the race would continue beyond them, so that worthy progeny would be begotten and the race would continue, so that a continuous stream of kings would be available to administer and govern the kingdom. Prajayi Grihamedina, as Swami Vivekananda said at one juncture, children must be born of prayer, not of passion. Otherwise, there is no difference between human beings and animals. If the animalistic passion is going to dictate your progeny, that progeny also will be only of that caliber. They must be born of prayer. You see the case of Rama himself. Rama was born after so many thousands of years, after Dasharatha had performed the Ashwamedha and the Putrakameshti, and he has besieged the sages that his line should continue, that his Vamsha should continue. After all these prayerful ministrations, Rama was born. Even earlier, if you see, Raghu was born to Didipa and Sulakshana. Kadadasa narrates this in the second sarga of the Raghu Vamsha. Didipa, who was desirous of having a son, begetting a son, he went to his family preceptor, Vasishtha. Vasishtha was the preceptor right from the times of Brahma to Rama. For 40 generations, he has been the preceptor of the entire solar dynasty. He went to Vasishtha. Didipa went to Vasishtha and said, "You please tell me a way how I can get a worthy son." So he Vasishtha advised him to take care of Nandini, who was the calf of the divine cow Kamadhenu, and minister to her needs every day. A king, an emperor, he tended to that cow from morning to night, along with the full-scale participation of his wife Dakshina, Sudakshina. There is a wonderful example given by Kadadasa. Sudakshina followed her husband Dilipa, even as the Smriti follows the inner meaning of the Shruti. Margam Manusheshwara Dharmapatni Shruterivartam Smritiran Bhagachyati. That is how, after all these tending to Kamadhenu's daughter Nandini, that is how Raghu was born. So the entire family, you find that children are born of prayer. Again, I will give you one more example. It comes in the Balakanda, the 42nd Sarga of the Balakanda. There, Bhagirath, who pleased Brahma by his tapas. When Brahma came down to give some boons to him, he asked that the Ganga may be allowed to flow in the mortal world and also the nether world, where his forefathers, the 60,000 sons of Sagara Maharaja, who were collectively known as Sagaras, they were burned to ashes by the grants of Kapila. Not only that, he said, let this family lineage continue. There should not be a case where a young Dampati, having been married for several years, they are yet not blessed with a son or a daughter. Let it not be so. Let children be born in the right time. This is the only, and not only that, the children should not ever face difficulty or sorrow. The parents should not feel sad seeing the misfortunes visited on the progeny. This is the boon that I seek from you. Ikshvakunam kudedeva yeshamestu vara paraha. This is the only boon I seek from you. Deyacha santatir navasidet kulanchanaha ikshvakostu kudedeva yeshamestu vara paraha. Deyacha santati. So, by prayer, by boon, by divine blessing, this race has continued to grow. That is how the entire history of the solar dynasty is there. So, children must be born out of prayer, out of a sacred worship of the Lord, and because of His grace, children must be born. So, that is how Rama also incarnated. Prajayi Grihamedinam. They were householders so that they could get progeny worthy of that race. So, this is the basis. These 16 gunas constitute the corrective virtue base of the solar dynasty. Ragunam Anvayam Bakshe Tanuvag Vibhavopi Sannu Tadgunegi Karnamagatya Chapalaya Prachoditaha. That is the next sloka in the Ragumsha. These gunas, these virtues of the entire race, they come and propel me to sing about them. That is why I have started on this great epic called Ragumsha. Into such a Vamsha, which was already embellished by various virtues. If these virtues were like a gold chain, then you have got the diamond pendant in the middle, that is Sri Rama. That is how Ikshvaku Prabhava Vamshaha Ramo Nama Janishchutaha. He could have straight away said, he is called as Rama. He is heard by the name Rama by the people. The Ramo Nama Janishchutaha. Why? Because actually name and form, according to the Vedanta Shastra, they are merely conditioning elements. What we call Upadhi in the parlance of Vedanta, we call it as Upadhi. They don't constitute your real self. If they constitute your real self, the same name and the same form should continue Janma after Janma. It is not so. The same name, even in this Janma, sometimes the name gets changed. When you take sannyasa, the name gets changed. Am I audible? There seems to be a slight perceptible drop in audibility, which, these ears are very tuned like that. Over 50 years of listening to this mic, these ears are tuned. There's a slight perceptible drop in audibility, I could discern it. Doesn't matter. So long as I'm audible to the physical audience present here, I think that should not matter. Name and form they don't constitute your real self. If it so, you should be able to take this name, you should be able to take this form. Supposing somebody has been blessed with a very beautiful body, you should be able to take this beautiful body across janmas. But it is not at all possible. Nobody in the world can ever do it. So, they don't constitute your true nature that we should realize. The true nature is sought to be constrained by name and form. Rama is the name. The form, it is necessary. Saguna Rupa is necessary for us to meditate, to contemplate. But ultimately, you have to transcend that form and go to the formless truth. That is what is indicated by the phrase Ramo Nama Janishutaha Ikshvaku Prabhavo Vamshaha Ramo Nama Janishutaha Niyatatma Mahaviryaha. Normally, in the discourses on Ramayana, even though they may extend for a month or two, we don't get the time or the opportunity to expatiate on all these 70 gunas which Narada has narrated to Valmiki. So, with the grace of God, it is proposed to take up each guna by itself, perhaps with the exception of Samudrika Lakshanas. So, see how they are displayed during the course of the Ramayana, during the course of the story. Niyata Atma Mahaviryaha Dhyutiman Dhritiman Vashi. The word Atma has three main meanings. One is the Shuddha Chaitanya, which is the Atma of the Upanishads. The other is the mind, and Atma also means body, depending on the context. Here it means the mind. Niyata Atma means one who has controlled the mind. Niyata Atma, it can also be interpreted as having controlled the body, where the body is subservient to your will, so that it does not indulge in any unwanted movements. If you say that you must have a fixed posture for such a period of time, then the body will simply obey your will. That is how the Yoga Shastra tries to discipline the body. Niyatatma in this context means one who has controlled his body, more importantly, one who has controlled his mind. If you control your mind, the body will be automatically controlled. Mind is the motivator, it is the prime mover behind the body. Just think of it, we don't, because certain things we take so much for granted, we don't pause to think of the ramifications. How does the body move? We all know, we walk down, supposing you are living in one of the houses in the street, you walk down to the Samajam for the Upanyasam. But subconsciously, there is a mental desire, you want to go and hear something good. That is why you walk down. So it is the mind which has prompted the body to walk down to the place where the discourse is taking place. So Niyatatma in its greater sense means one who has controlled the mind. I will give you one example. It is not possible to exhaustively cover all these gunas, because already one day is almost over. We have got only 4 days left, and we have got 70 gunas, even the Sankshepa Ramayana itself. Forget about the other sargas. There is a total of 535 sargas, if my memory serves me right. 535 sargas from Balaganda to Yuddhaganda. In the one sarga, the 70 gunas have been narrated by Narada to Valmiki. Let us try to do justice to this. Niyatatma, I will give you one illustrative example for each, to the extent possible. The scenario is something like this. Vasishtha has just completed the pre-coronation rituals, very topical today, because the pre-consecration rituals are already in progress in Ayodhya. We are now talking of the pre-coronation rituals which were performed by Vasishtha as the family preceptor, and he has retired to his ashram. The Shastras require that a person who is going to be crowned as the king on the morrow should fast the previous day and also stay awake throughout the night. There is a similar requirement in the case of persons who want to take sannyasa. The previous night they have to keep awake the whole night. That is a Shastric injunction. Rama, along with Sita, he was worshipping the family deity Ranganatha. There is a beautiful sloka there. Gate Purokite Ramaha Snahato Niyatamanasah Sahapatnya Vishadakshya Naharayanam Upagamati. Nato Niyatamanasah. In the Sankshepa Ramayana, it is Niyatatma. In the Ayodhya Kanda, it is Niyata Manasaha. It is more explicit there. Here, Atma is subject to various interpretations. There, Manasa means the mind, Niyata Manasaha. One who has his mind in perfect control. Why that is important there? Whether it is pleasure or pain, if you are moved by either of these dualities, you cannot have a controlled mind. One whose mind is controlled will not be elated by pressure, or it will not be depressed by sorrow either. Rama was a sthita pragya in his own right. It is a very interesting thing. Because he was a sthita pragya throughout, because he was the very embodiment of equanimity and equipoise, that is why he was the only person who was competent to teach Sthita Pragyatva to Arjuna in the second Adhyaya of the Gita, in this next incarnation of Sri Krishna. He did not preach that which he did not practice. He practiced it in Ramavatara, then only he preached it in Krishnavatara as Sthita Pragya Dakshana. One who is beyond pressure and pain, one who is beyond joy and sorrow, he alone is a Sthita Pragya. Now just imagine, the entire empire of the Ikshvakus is going to come to him on the next day. He is going to be crowned as the Yuvaraja. It is such a great gain, we cannot even think of it. Small gains, even if you are going to get a small gain, you become agitated, no doubt agitated in a joyful frame of mind. But any thought which takes away from the single point at focus of the mind is an agitation. Whether it is caused by pain or sorrow or pleasure is a different question. But the fact remains that the mind is not in a state of equanimity. For an ordinary mortal, a small gain also will elate him. A small bit of sorrow also will depress him. Rama, here you have got Rama, who was about to become the Yuvaraja, the crown prince of the entire kingdom. His mind was totally at calm, at peace with itself. There was not the slightest tinge of elation. I am reminded of a modern parallel to this. The Sringeri Pita has been adorned by great saints and sages as the Acharyas over its history. The 33rd Acharya of the Pita, Sachidananda Shivabhinama Nrsimha Bharati Mahaswamigal, he attained Videha Mukti before a successor could be anointed and initiated into the sannyasa ashrama. But he had mentally already chosen one Nrsimha Shastri, a Naishtika Brahmachari of the highest virtue. Before this Nrsimha Shastri, who was studying Vedanta in the Prauda Vidyashala at Bangalore, before he could be summoned to his Acharya's presence, the previous Acharya, 33rd Acharya, he attained Videha Mukti. When Nrsimha Bharati Swamigal was called back to Sringeri, and the preparations were made to anoint him as the next successor, the 34th Acharya of the Pita, who would later on assume the monastic name of Chandrasekhar Bharati Mahaswamigal. The next day was the day decided for the sannyasa svikara. The previous day, he was about 20 years, a stripling, a brahmachari, stripling of a boy, fresh out of Patashala. There are all senior people who had grown aged in the service of the mutt. They were all discussing there, and this brahmachari, when he came, they all stood up because they were conscious that tomorrow this particular person is going to be their Jagadguru, their Acharya. He was totally unself-conscious of the whole thing. The people protested, "You must not stand here. You are going to be the Jagadguru. You should take a respected seat." That he said, "That is tomorrow. That's all. Jagadgurutvam is only tomorrow. Today I am only a brahmachari, that's all. I will stand in front of all these elders and seniors." See, he was totally unaffected by the fact that tomorrow he would become the spiritual leader of millions and millions of Hindus. He did not have that consciousness at all. Niyata Mahavirya. Rama was like that. Gade Purvogire Rama Snato Nigatamanasaka Sagapatnya Vishalaksha Narayanam Upagamat. His mind was fully in control. Of course, a greater example can be given. When Dasharatha gave these two boons to Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi had Rama summoned to her presence through the offices of Sumantra, then There is a lot of discussion between Rama and Kaikeyi. There is the story part. We don't have time to go into the story part. This entire series of discourses is going to be more analytical in nature rather than descriptive. The story is well known to everybody. She conveyed the king's boon that Rama should go to the forest for 14 long years in sackcloth and ashes, as the phrase goes in English, donning the garb of the tree, garment made of tree bark, and sporting a jeta on his head. There was not the slightest reaction of disappointment. Mind you, the very same morning was chosen for coronation. On the day he should have been crowned as the Yuva Raja, he is being asked to go to the forest, forsaking even the normal conveniences which would be available to a common man. A shelter under which he can rest, food and clothing of the normal kind, even these were denied to Rama. You go, he has to subsist on fruits or whatever arms he can raise in the forest. So he has to go to the forest for 14 years, not 1 day or 2 days, but 14 years. This is conveyed in the more cavalier manner, without any preparation, without any advance notice. That was not the slightest trace of disappointment in his mind, in his demeanor. In fact, he was very happy that he was given an opportunity to put into practice the word which had been given by his father, the plighted word of his father. Yes, he was happy that he got an opportunity to practice the plighted word of his father. Navanam gantukamasya tyajatascha vasundaram. That is the exact shloka in the Valmiki Ramayana. Sarvalokatikasyeva dikshate chitta vikriya. Like an ascetic who has totally renounced the entire world, who is unaffected by pain and pressure. This great ascetic among kings and a king among ascetics, as you can call Rama, he was totally unaffected. He was desirous of going to the forest. Navanam gantukamasya. This gantukama of Valmiki finds its resonance in the Narayanam of Bhattatri. Tatoktyaya tu kamaha vanam anujabadu samyutascha padharaha paurana-rudhyamarge guhanireyagataha tunjata chiradhari. So he was desirous of going to the forest. There was no question of any change in his mind. Lakshate, na lakshate chitta vikriya. There was not the slightest trace in his mind, nor in his facial countenance. Niyatatma, mind is in perfect control. This is the version of Valmiki. Kadadasa and Kambar, they give a slightly different version, which only enhances the greatness of Rama. There was a change. Kadadasa said there was a change. Before, when the previous day, Dasharatha summoned Rama and told him, I want to crown you as the Yuvaraja, as the crown prince. Tomorrow is the day I have chosen. It is the day when Pushya Nakshatra is in the ascendant. Speaking of nakshatras, one is reminded, today's day of inauguration of the series has been divinely ordained. We were thinking of several dates. Ultimately, the 16th of January was decided upon as the starting date of the discourse. Now I find it is sacred to Shiva because today's nakshatra is Uttara Proshtapada, for which the presiding deity is Agarbudnyo Devata Shiva. It is also sacred to Ambal because it happens to be a Tuesday and Durga Parameshwari is worshipped on this particular day. It also happens that the child of these two divine parents, Muruga, Subramanya, is propitiated today because it is the Shukla Shashti. A vrata is followed for propitiating Subramanya. So you have got the entire Shiva Kutumba, the entire family of Shiva and Parvati who are blessing us when we start upon this, when we embark upon this journey of Rama Guna Anubhavam. It is only meet, it is only fit because you cannot find a greater Rama Bhakta than Parameshwara. He keeps on chanting the Rama Nama without cessation, all the 24 hours of the day, Yadavarnagat Karnamule Antakale Shivo Rama Rameti Rameti Kashyam Sadekam Param Tarakam Brahmarupam Bajeham 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 Bajeham. The Pushya Nakshatra was chosen as the day for coronation. The previous day, Dasharatha summoned Rama and told him, tomorrow I am going to crown you as the Yuvaraja. The next day comes this thunderbolt of a order, you have to go to the forest. When Dasharatha told Rama, tomorrow I am going to crown you, he accepted this father's word with internal tears. That is what Kalidasa tells us. Now, why did he accept it with tears? Grammarians, they give a very interesting explanation for this. In Sanskrit, the word Mahi means Bhumi, the earth. He is going to be crowned as the king of the earth, the Yuvaraja, the crown prince of the earth. Already I am wedded to Sita. You are giving me Mahi, another lady. It is quite in contrast with my Ekadara Vratam. How am I to accept it? Yet, you are the father, you are my king, you are my father, you are my everything. I don't have the right to even think of questioning you. So I accept it as a Pitruvakya. The next day, when he was asked to go to the forest, he was happy to go to the forest, renounced the kingdom because, true to his Ekapatni Vrata, his fidelity to Sita and to Sita alone, the Vanam did not pose any problem. Vanam is a neutral gender in its grammatical form, it is neutral gender. So, he was happy to go to the forest. Pitra Dattam Rudan Ramaha Prang Mahim Pratyapadyata Paschad Vanaya Gacheti Tadagyam Muditograhit. இப்பொழுது எம்மனோரால் இயம்பதற்கு எளிதாயினும் செப்பெரும் முகத்தை கண்டால் அப்பொழுது அலர்ந்த செந்தாமரை வென்றதம்மா is Kambar's word. So, only then, when he was asked to go to the forest, only then the face of Rama bloomed like a new bloomed lotus flower. அப்பொழுது அலர்ந்த செந்தாமரையினை வென்றதம்மா. Previously, when he was accepting the kingdom, it was done as a duty. When he was asked to go to the forest, it became a pleasure for him. It became a source of happiness for him. Navanam gantukamasya tejasasya sundaram. That was the state, that was the perfect mastery of the mind he had. So, Niyata Atma Mahaviryaha Dhyutiman Dhritiman Vashi. We have just touched upon Niyata Atma. From Mahavirya onwards, we will continue where we left today, we will continue tomorrow. We will continue with the same Rama Guna Anubhavam. It is a great blessing to be able to immerse ourselves in the virtues of the Lord. May His blessings be with all of us so that we can elevate ourselves and uplift ourselves spiritually. The usual Mangala Shloka will follow along with Nama Sankirtana, as in the case of Tamil discourses. Devotees are requested to be seated till the end, and then they can take leave with Rama in their hearts. You can go, that is the real prasada. Rama Anugraha in your hearts. You may go back to your residences to come back tomorrow for the continuation. Aigiri Nandini Nandita Medini Vishwa Vinodini Nandinute Girivara Vindhya Shirodhini Vasini Vishnu Vidasini Jishnunute Bhagavati Shiti Kanta Kutumbini Bhuri Krute Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Dini Ramyakapar Dini Shina Sute Kundasuma Brindasama Mandaha Sitasyam Nandakula Nandabhara Tundadana Kandam Putanija Gita Rava Duta Duritam Tam Vatapura Nata Mimamatanu Hridabje Nilatara Jaladhara Bala Hariramyam Lolatara Shila Yuta Bala Janadilam Jalanati Shilamapi Padayitu Kamam Vatapura Natha Mimamatanu Hridabjege Kalyana Rupaya Kalu Jananam Kalyana Datre Karuna Sudhabde Kamvadi Divyayuda Satkaraya Vatanaya Dhisha Namo Namaste Narayana 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 நாராயண 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 நாராயண. மங்களம் கோசலேந்திராய மகனீய குணாத்மனே சக்கரவர்த்தி தனூஜாய சார்வபௌமாய மங்களம். மங்களோ மஸ்கரீந்திராய மகனீய குணாத்மனே அனந்தராம யதகே ஸ்ரவணானந்ததாயினே சுகசாஸ்திரஸ்வரூபாய பாராயண பராய ச ராமச்சந்திராஸ்ரயாக்கியாய சம்யமீந்திராய மங்களம். காஞ்சனாத்ரிநிபாங்காய வாஞ்சிதார்த்தப்பிரதாயினே அஞ்சனாபாக்யரூபாய ஆஞ்சநேயாய மங்களம். जानकीकान्तस्मरणं जय जय राम राम. श्री सद्गुरुस्वामिनः जय. आञ्जनेयस्वामिनः जय. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्याय्येन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं. लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु. कायेन वाचा मनसा इन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्या आत्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. त्वदीयं वस्तु राजेन्द्र तुभ्यमेव समर्पये तेन त्वदङ्घ्रिकमदे रतिं मे यच्च शाश्वतीं यदक्षरपदभ्रष्टं मात्रा हीनं तु यद्भवेत् तत्सर्वं क्षम्यतां देव नारायण नमोऽस्तु ते. विसर्गबिन्दुमात्राश्च पदपादाक्षराणि च न्यूनानि चातिरिक्तानि क्षमस्व पुरुषोत्तमा क्षमस्व रघुनन्दना क्षमस्व गुरुसत्तमा क्षमस्व हरिसत्तमा. यज्ञेशाच्युतगोविन्द माधवानन्तकेशव कृष्णविष्णु ऋषिकेश वासुदेव नमोऽस्तु ते. श्रीहरये नमः. गुरुवायुरप्पा शरणं नारायण अखिलगुरो भगवन्नमस्ते. वासुदेव कामाक्षि गुरुमूर्ते त्वां नमामि. कामाक्षि गुरुवदिके पादुके शरणम्.